So we should study architecture and memory organization, study subsystems that are available in standard versions, and I think this we already discussed in 1980s or so. The American chip manufacturer Intel introduced 8051. Now many other firms are manufacturing compatible versions. The name given to the whole group of microcontrollers is 8051. Actually, there are so many versions: 8051, 8052, etc., 89C51, 89C52, 55, WD, and all those versions. But the common name given is actually MCS 51 standard, that is 8051, which uses actually 8-bit core. Okay, let's see the features of the 8051 microcontroller. Okay, so this 8051, Intel's 8051, it is actually 8-bit controller, 8-bit CPU. And unlike your other higher versions, like PIC controllers uses 32-bit 32 instruction sets, but this 8051 actually uses 111 operating instruction sets, including multiplication and division. So you might be aware that what kind of there are different architectures of the controller, basically CISC and RISC, etc. How many, I don't know if you are aware, how many of you are aware of the architectures CISC and RISC, and then what is this 8051 architecture? What is the architecture of 8051? Are you aware what is the architecture of 8051? Any center would like to respond to that? There are different architectures. Whenever we design any chip, any controller, there is a software architecture, there is a hardware architecture. As far as the hardware architecture is concerned, there is like Harvard architecture, Van Neumann, Princeton architecture, who actually developed the cores of this, and there is a difference. Harvard uses actually two separate data buses, address buses for different memories. And as far as the software architectures are concerned, there is a well-known architecture called as CISC and RISC. CISC is actually the complex instruction set computers, and RISC is actually reduced instruction set computers. So I would like to know from you, if you know that what is the architecture that is used in case of 8051, Intel's 8051. Just I'm asking because I want to keep you awake for this post lunch. So I think it will be good to have interactive session, little bit interactive. So just to keep you awake and just to keep your interest intact, I wish to interact to one of the center, whatever center you may go ahead and respond to that query. That what kind of architecture is available in case of Intel's 8051. It is CISC. He says one of the students here is saying CISC. Anyone from the remote end? Okay, so I think he's right saying that it is CISC, that is complex instruction set computers. Basically, it uses number of instructions, 111 instructions, and people often misunderstand when they compare RISC and CISC. Because RISC says that it is reduced instruction set computers, but its literal meaning is not actually reduced instruction set computers. Reduced meaning not that it is actually less number of instructions, which often people misunderstand, and which is the case with the PIC controllers. Your microchip family PIC controllers, actually they use the RISC architecture, and they use this RISC architecture. And that is actually reduced instruction set computers, and they use somewhere like 32, or actually in that also there are different families. So there is 32 or 33 instruction sets that they use. What actually it means actually is the simple to use and easy to execute the instructions. So simple and easy, and which consumes less bytes and less machine cycles is called as RISC set computers. Whereas this Intel's actually uses CISC, which is actually complex instruction set computers, and which is meaning that actually they use the instructions which are complex, like your addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So they have different philosophy, that they use the instructions which are complex. So definitely they will not take single one byte or one machine cycle. They might take 2 byte or 2 machine cycle kind of scenario, and therefore actually definitely it actually loads the CPU, and which is not case with the RISC. In case of RISC, actually the instructions are very easy and simple, and therefore it normally they take 1 machine cycle and 1 byte. So normally within 1 machine cycle they get executed. So 1 cycle and machine cycle and 1 byte, that is the thing that they take. So in case of 8051, it is instruction set of 111 operating, including multiplication and division, and it is Boolean processor. So I hope you understand that it is zeros. It works on zeros and ones, and it's a digital logic, and it's not a mixed signal controller, right? These days there are actually mixed signal controllers as well available in the market, and obviously they belong to the advanced level of controllers, which is not the case with the basic 8051. And 64 kilobytes of program memory, that is the address space it can have, because that much, program memory is actually something wherein we store the program. We also call it as a read-only memory, because we store the program, we cannot read and we cannot write, so it is only program which is stored in this 64 kilo in this memory. And there is a limitation to this 64 kilo, because it is actually 16-bit address bus. So 2 to the power 16 becomes only 64K. So that much it can actually access, and that much it can store, and that much memory it can actually address to, or it can reach to. So those many memory locations, so it becomes like, I think 64K. So yeah, 65536. That much maximum it can address in decimal. That many memory locations it can address this. And similarly, data memory it can have 64K again, and that is actually memory which is a scratch pad, and its temporary memory also is there, and you can it stores your temporary variables. And 8051, its inbuilt memories, this is actually the space maximum it can go, but this is not its capacity. I mean, this is not it actually available to you on chip. This is not the on chip memory available to you. This is maximum it can be extended to, it can accommodate to. So on chip, in case of 8051, is 128 bytes of RAM and 4 kilobytes of your ROM, right? So that is what is available to you. So might be some of you might be wondering so far that how come it is 64K, but it is not that. That is maximum it can go for. So on chip is available, which is 128 and 4K RAM and ROM respectively. Okay, now besides this, it has got two 16-bit timers and counters. So basically, although it is 8-bit controller, 8-bit CPU, because that is the maximum, maximum word size, 8-bit bits at a time, simultaneously, parallelly, it can process that 8 bits. But then it has got two 16-bit timers and counters. So obviously, it uses two separate 8-bit registers to actually perform the operations of timers and counter, TMOD, TCON, like that, TL, TH, high registers and low registers. These two registers it uses for actually performing the operations of the timers counters. Besides now, any controller, and as you know that was the major difference between processor and the controller, that controller provides you this real world interaction, real world interfacing, real world handshaking through its ports. So what are these ports? These are actually these parallel ports which are available for you, for the user to interact with the real world. So there are 4 ports available in the controller, that is P0, P1, P2, P3. We'll be seeing shortly the pin diagram and all that. So combinedly it makes you actually 8 4s 32. So there are 8 IOs available per port, and they make you they get you 32 IOs available, and which are bidirectional, meaning that you can read and write both, and data can be input, data can be output. So it can come in, it can go out. So they are bidirectional I/O lines available to you. These are 32. So depending upon your applications, you can decide about it that whether you need this kind of, because this is a 40-pin chip. This 8051 is actually 40-pin chip. So you can actually decide about, do you want to have 40-pin chip which consists of 32 bidirectional I/O lines, or you can have some 20-bit chips. There are different 20-bit chips also available, wherein you have normally 15 or 14 or 16 I/O lines available. So this in case of 8051, however, you have got it is a 40-pin chip, and there are 32 bidirectional I/O lines available, which you can program as an input or which you can program as an output depending upon your real-world requirement. Besides, these 32 bidirectional I/O lines, these 4 ports that we talked about, these are actually the parallel ports. And as I said, parallel ports, they definitely give you very high speed communication, and there are, besides other advantages, merits, but then so far as the long distance communication is concerned, and most popular interface in the real world as far as the communication goes is actually the serial port. And controller, as you know, it is a computer on a chip, microcomputer on a chip. It almost is making you available everything that is normally available to the computer, general purpose computer otherwise. So one of the important aspects is also having a serial port. So again, this is a full duplex serial port, meaning that actually duplex, there are actually simplex and duplex. This is a full duplex serial port, and obviously, since it is a full duplex serial port, you are actually able to simultaneously transmit as well as receive the data. Since it is a duplex, had it been simplex, it would have not been the case. But then there are different types of communications: simplex, duplex, and asynchronous, synchronous, etc. So this provides you actually full duplex serial port, which can enable you to have transmission as well as reception at the same time. Because independently 2 pins are available. There is a transmit pin available, there is a receive pin available, and these 2 pins are independent, hardwired, and so therefore simultaneously it can perform both the jobs, transmission as well as the reception. Basically this is hardware-based serial port. There is inside it there is a UART, universal asynchronous receiver transmitter. So there is inbuilt, there is on-chip SCI, serial communication interface, which is on-chip on this 8051, which consists of the UART. And as you know, this is actually also possible to make it using the software. So through software also, you can actually create the UART and all this, but then it may not be that precise and that accurate and that fast or as accurate as this can be. So this is a hardware-based full duplex serial port, which is available on chip, the microcontroller port, microcontroller hardware. So this is actually taking care of your serial port. So as far as the communications are concerned, you can have parallel communication, you can have serial communication, and in real world, as you see now, you might be in need of actually counting the pulses, or you might need to count the frequency, or you might need to count pulse width modulation, etc. kind of situations, or you might need to count or sense kind of sensors or encoders which actually have different type of pulses. So what you need is actually the timers and counters. So these timers and counters, these counters actually count the pulses or frequency counters, and at many times you need to generate the precision delays, precise delays, accurate delays. There are different methods, vector and different, but those are software. You can write for loops or while loops, but then those software-based delays are not as accurate as these hardware delay timers are there. So timers are normally used for generating the precise time delay generations, and they are also actually they're actually the counters also. They are used for the counting purposes. When they count the pulses, actually they generate different timings, etc. So they are very useful for actually addressing your real-world requirements, frequency counters or so, and 32-bit IOs, which you can actually interface to any of your requirement, real-world requirement. You might connect your GPS, printer, or LCDs, keypads, or memory. Anything can be interfaced with this kind of 32 IOs. And full duplex serial port, either that can be used for actually communicating with the computer or any other similar compatible devices, as well as this can be also used for interfacing your GPS. These days actually most of the GPS, they have serial port kind of communications availability. Even your most of the devices, even LCDs these days are available on SPI, serial peripheral interface kind of controllers. Serial communication is available. Even memories are available on serial communication. So because one of the advantages actually, let's say you might be aware, you might be aware of some interfacing work, like LCD takes 8-bit for interfacing the LCD. But if that LCD is serial port based LCD, then it will use just 2 pins. Okay, so receiver and transmitter. So it will use just 2 pins, and you can save a lot of pins. And this matters actually. We have seen that cost is a very important factor. So therefore, if it is a serial based, it can save a lot of pins. So you can have printer interfacing, GPS interfacing, and many interfaces like that. And as far as the embedded system is concerned, there are a lot of other components which actually matters and which shape up the performance of the embedded systems. So one of the important aspect is actually on-chip clock oscillator. So having an on-chip clock oscillator matters because this is something was not available to the processor. Then it saves the cost. There is a lot of optimization, and without clock, actually nothing can work. All these analog digital chips and blocks cannot work. It is like having a heartbeat. So that heartbeat, with that heartbeat only, every complete hardware actually it receives the timing and all that, it works. So on-chip oscillator is the most important aspect to any controller, and 8051 is having that kind of on-chip oscillator, clock oscillator. And it is also quite possible to supply, input from externally through different sources. There are RC oscillator, there are crystal kind of quartz crystal oscillators. Through any other sources also, you can use the function generators to input the different oscillators. And one of the important information I would like to give you is, what is the maximum and minimum crystal that you can connect? Any idea to you at this moment? Yes. For Atmel or otherwise Intel's also. Yeah, different controllers. But then as far as the NCS 15 or 801 standards are concerned, and Intel's 8051 is concerned, it is 4 to 30 megahertz and up to 24 megahertz or 30 megahertz. And definitely it matters as far as the lower and higher frequencies are concerned. Because it is one of the performance shaping the performance of the embedded system. Because any application that you develop, if its speed and performance depends upon the kind of oscillators available. One of the applications that we developed recently uses the 100 megahertz crystal. So you can have, like, if it is one machine cycle, you can have 100 million instructions per second. That is a normal rough estimate of performance of any controller. So 30 megahertz of course will have less speed comparatively, and machine cycle will also have some role to play, because in case of 8051 machine cycle is crystal frequency by 12. So it takes 12 clock pulses to actually perform that job, one machine cycle. And every instruction can have different number of machine cycles and different bytes that they consume, the mnemonics and the instruction depend upon the instruction. So this on-chip clock oscillator has a lot of role and a lot of importance attached to it, that how maximum and how much maximum speed that you can have. Let's say you want to count some pulses or some frequency counter you are developing, and that frequency counter, it is very high speed, that is the pulses are changing very fast. The age, maybe it is age triggered and you are triggering your timers and counters, etc. But your controller itself is not that fast. So it cannot, using that sampling theorem. So based on the sampling theorem, it cannot sample all the pulses. So it is not able to perform that job. So therefore, on-chip oscillator will play a role. And 8051 can go up to 30 megahertz. And it is actually SRAM, static RAM. I think it has got a static and dynamic RAM. It depends upon what kind of RAM it uses. and therefore that lower limit is there. So that lower limit, why it is not starting from 0, that is one of the question and query that you can ponder upon. Why is not that starting at 0 and it is starting at 4 megahertz? So that has something to do with the advancements. One of the clue is actually with the memories, whether it is SRAM or DRAM, and these different memories, they actually have different requirements. And for that matter, well, one of the information I want to give you is actually any advancements of the controller happen based upon the kind of memory advancements that we have. So if the memories are advancing, then we can have different controllers with the much more better facilities, etc. Whether you consider any controller having in-system programming, in-application programming, or any other like pipelining or this architecture. So it has some linkage with the memory advancements, and that is why this PIC controller or other controllers, Atmel controllers, mixed signal controllers, they have an electrically erasable controllers. So they have different actually memory architectures, and they only lead to this kind of advancements. So the advancement of any controller actually has got a linkage with the advancements in the memory. Okay. Now the 4K bytes, as we already said, actually this is the on-chip program memory. This is factory masked programmable read-only memory. And excuse me. In memories, as you are aware, there are actually different types of memory. SRAM and DRAM, of course, these are there, but then one-time programmable, okay, EPROM, okay, there is something called as PROM, which is programmable read-only memory, and then these PROMs are actually they are programmable, and there are something called as one-time programmable, which are actually maskable. You know, they are only once programmed and factory programmed, and you cannot reprogram them. And they have attached different importance to all these memory types because they are cost effective. Like factory mask memories are actually very cost effective because they are programmed from the factory itself, because they are using the final versions. Like all the development is complete, then you can request to the manufacturer that okay, I need 1,000 pieces or so, and they are factory masked. So they are very cost effective. Whereas in normal consideration, we have actually programmable read-only memories, and then there are something called as EPROMs, electrically programmable read-only memories. So 4 kilobytes on-chip program memory is there in case of 8051, which is factory masked and programmable ROM. And if it is EPROM, you will find those kind of controllers, which is of course not the case with Intel's 8051. You'll find that they are actually having a there is a window to it on the top of it, and they are erased through the UV rays. So those consist they have separate. I think the series starts with the 87. So 87 series starts with that kind of memories having inbuilt, and they can be erasable. They are programmable and they are erasable also, and they can be erased with the UV sources. So using UV source, you can erase them, and there are like 89 series, which is another series from the Atmel. So 89 stands for the electrically erasable. So these are the factory standards. So wherever you will see that 89, that means the memory is electrically erasable. Just with the flash it will actually erase, and within few seconds only. So 8891, one of the controller version available from the Atmel, having this kind of capacity. And this Intel's 8051 is having 4 kilobytes on-chip program memory, which is factory masked programmable ROM, and processes 128 bytes of internal data memory. So for storing your temporary variables, normally we call it Scratchpad, and there is a 128 bytes of internal RAM. And we'll come for further, and we'll see that how this actually is divided into different banks and how it is used for different purposes, how the stack pointer works, etc. So it has 128 bytes of internal data memory. Excuse me, can I have watch, please? Watch, because I'm unable to keep watch on them. So if I can keep it here. something like anything. Yes. Thank you. So I'll be able to manage the time. Okay. So it has got 128, and obviously, as I said, if you want to extend it, then you can obviously go up to the 64K. There are different chips, like in case of 8051, Intel's 8051, you can go for 27C512, which is a ROM, and there is another 62256, which is a RAM, which is extendable. So you can definitely, but you will have to sacrifice 2 ports of the controller. Yeah, and oscillator frequency for most devices actually vary between 3.5 to 24 megahertz. To be precise, and some versions can also run up to the 33 megahertz. And microcontroller unit based on dynamic logic can't operate below a certain clock rate, but static devices are able to slow down to 0. So dynamic RAM based 8051s actually can't operate below 3.5 megahertz. As you can see, that is the limit, whereas those which are built on the DRAM logic, the SRAM logic, they can go as low as 0 megahertz. And well, for 12 megahertz crystal, it will take 1, 2, or 4 microseconds for a given instruction to be executed. Basically, it depends upon the machine cycle, and so 12, that is the crystal divided by 12, actually it gives you 1 microsecond. So that is the time it takes. So 1 machine cycle for executing 1 instruction, it takes that much, and depends upon the type of instruction as well. So whether it takes 2 bytes or 2 machine cycle, but and 8051, the whole instructions are not that optimized. Whereas in case of PIC controller, almost every instruction gets executed in 1 machine cycle only. So almost every instruction is going to take 1 microsecond only. So therefore also it is much more faster. And assuming 1 microsecond instructions are most frequent, it can be viewed as an engine delivering 1 million instruction per second performance. Actually 1 MIPS, and as I said that 1 machine cycle crystal divided by 12, because 12 clock pulses it takes, and there are 6 states in the 12 clock pulses and 12 phases, and each phase consists of 2 the 6 states, each state consists of 2 phases. So there are 12 clock pulses which actually are used for executing any instruction. And if we consider that 1 instruction takes 1 machine cycle, it is 1 million instruction per second. But you know, it is very less. And the advanced controllers, actually it is one of the estimate. Why do we see into that? Because there are like Drystone or MIPS. These are the rough estimates. These are the rough estimates of actually the speed and performance of the controller. So as a layman, if you don't know how to know that which controller is very powerful, you can use these kind of estimates. And if as I was telling you that 100 MIPS is considered, you know, higher. So one of the controller that we were using, although 8-bit, but it was, you know, like 100 MIPS per second, that kind of performance. So you can use that as a rough estimate to know the performance of the controller. The actual performance can be only known by running the particular instruction and kind of some subroutine, and knowing you that okay, this kind of subroutine that effectively or efficiently it can perform. So CMOS, obviously this all of us know that CMOS versions will draw less power and can operate in idle and powered on mode as well. So when we say that 80C51, actually that C stands for CMOS, okay, and MCS51 is actually the standard. Okay, let's have some look at the architecture, and you can take a look at this slide which says that 8051 actually is an 8-bit microcontroller, meaning that it can process all 8 bits simultaneously. So maximum that much it can do. If it is 16-bit, had it been 16-bit, it would have processed 16 bits at a time. And as you know, it is like the example can be given like it is like lanes. More number of lanes that you have on the roads, like 4-lane, 2-lane systems. So faster will be the information access or processing. So that is how it is, and so 8-bit will, you know, have sort of performance which is lesser than the 16-bit controllers. And therefore, I know most of the registers that are available in the 8051 there are 8-bit registers, and like there are 8-bit register banks, and most like banks are, there are banks, basically there are four banks available, bank 0 to bank 3, and these four banks. We'll see in its memory architecture that uh, how much memory it takes and how the organization is. So actually they take the 32 bytes of memory from 00 to 2F, and we'll see the memory architecture shortly. And in addition, one 16-bit register is there, data pointer. So this is actually a 16-bit register besides your accumulator, which is a 8-bit. So most of the operations that are happening in 8051 are actually through the accumulator. Okay. Very rarely you'll see that any kind of typical multiplication division operation happening, then only register B comes into picture. Otherwise all the operations are actually through accumulator. And besides this, if there is like if you are having access with the memory, external memory, then your data pointer DPTR comes into picture, because you have to access the 16-bit of address size, and therefore those address spaces are actually 16-bit wide, and therefore you need the kind of data pointer which is actually 16-bit register, and it is used to address the external data memory. We have seen that this accumulator, and almost all arithmetic operations and data transfer with the external data memory are implemented through accumulator. Register B is involved in multiplication and division, and program status word. You know what happens, like there is a program counter. In any memory, in any embedded system, basically there is, what we do is actually we write the program, right? What do we do? Basically, any application, there is a program, and where is that program stored? In ROM. That is where it is stored. And who fetches that program? Program counter actually fetching the program. So control unit controls the things. Program counter points to the next address and all that. So this is how the whole instructions are actually getting processed, and program is getting executed for a particular application. Now, while doing so, what happens? ALU and all these are actually handling all the operations. So what happens is actually different status are getting generated of different processes that are happening inside the processor. So who tells us the status of these different processes? What is happening? It is program status word. So whatever the program is doing, whatever the status is happening, so who keeps us the checks on all these processes is actually program status word. So there is something called as PSW, which is again a 8-bit register, and this register actually contains the few flags. So whenever some particular operation happens, there are different flags like carry flag, auxiliary flag, and so it indicates in terms of flagging of those flags, 0 or 1, either 0 or 1, or parity flag, and so on. We'll see through examples how those flags work. So this is all about the architecture of 8051. It has basically program counter, there is accumulator, there is a B register, and there are program status word, and there are timer counters. Nothing more than that. So if you look at it, there is actually RAM, ROM. That is what all it is. And RAM is again actually divided into banks, and in ROM there is your program to take care of all the operations. You need accumulator, you need status word, you need program counter, and in case of additional memory that you want to access to, then you need the data pointer. Okay, then one of the important thing is, like, architecture is something, it will put everything on chip what is required. Okay, so one of the important thing that you need is actually, while executing some operations, it often happens like that somebody is interrupting the things. Some operation is interrupting the ongoing operation. So what happens is that there should be some arrangement available to the processor or controller to take care of these kind of things. So there is something called a stack pointer. Okay, so what that stack pointer does is actually it points to the memory. Okay, it points to the memory, and it stores, or either stores there or retains from there. So stack pointer does all these jobs. So stack pointer is nothing but it related to the stack operations and is incremented before data is stored. So whether data is stored or retained, so actually it is incremented. So stack pointer क्या करता है कि stack में और stack क्या करता है कि it may reside anywhere in internal RAM. जितना भी internal RAM है 128 bytes का, वो कहीं पर भी रिटेन कर सकता है, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन कौन सा मेमोरी आपने सिलेक्ट किया है, कौन सा बैंक सिलेक्ट किया है. So there are 4 banks. So out of 4 बैंक जो भी सिलेक्शन होगा डिफॉल्ट बैंक 0 होता है and your stack pointer default location 07 होता है. So whatever happens is incremented to 07 08.
By default the bank is 1.
By default bank 0 starting का.
Yeah. For stack it is 1.
हाँ, for stack it is 1. For stack it is 1. No, stack by default you will have bank 0 because all are 0 0. I'll come to that. I'll show you how it happens. And stack is initialized at 07 hex after the reset. Stack pointer, that is the address of the stack. Okay, 07 hex after reset, and this causes stack to begin at 08 hex because that is 07 is the default and it increments. Okay, and data pointer is a 16-bit register, and we'll see how that stack works and how the banks are selected shortly in a while. And DPTR is a 16-bit register. DPH, DPL, these are, and that can be viewed as a DPH and DPL. So these are 8-bit obviously, and common access to external data memory is based on this data pointer. So whenever there is an external access, that will happen through this DPTR. And program counter addresses the instructions in the program memory as usual. And amount and type of program memory varies with version because we are addressing the memory. अगर आपका 4K है, 64K है, तो कहाँ तक जाएगा program counter? FF, okay, all F, वहाँ तक जाएगा. 4 times F तक वहाँ तक जाएगा stack pointer. So depending upon the memory, so 4K के केस में कहाँ तक जाएगा? 00 से शुरू हो गया. So if it is a 4K memory, the program counter will go 0 0 0 say this is the first location, and if it is a 4K memory, which is the case of 8051, so where will it go? This one. Okay. So depending upon the memory, the stack pointer जो है, so depending upon the amount of the type of the program memory will vary, and depending upon that it can point to the different address. Program counter will address to the different instruction in the program memory, and it depends upon the program memory. So 8031 is one of the version that is available, but it lacks the internal program memory. Okay, with the Atmel, this Intel. And all microprocessors, they possess at least 128 bytes of internal data memory. It will not happen that they don't have the internal memory, because at least they will have. Why it is required? Because there are actually general purpose registers and there are special purpose registers. So all these, your program counter, all your timer counter, etc., your ports, these are special function registers, your ports. So therefore 128 bytes you will definitely find. That is always there, because your ports and your timers, they form a part of the RAM, which is this 128 bytes. So that will be always there. Unlike your 8031, wherein actually you don't have ROM, which is 0 ROM. But 8051 is having a ROM, 4 kilo of ROM. Now, besides this, ports हमने देख लिया. Besides this, there are on-chip peripherals in case of 8051. Like आपको in case of real world interfacing आपको timers चाहिए होंगे, counters चाहिए होंगे. So therefore you will have timer counters उसके अंदर है. These are called as IO peripherals, which are available on the 8051. Then you will need 4 parallel ports. These are also on-chip peripherals, which will have interaction with the real world. You will have serial port. This is again a on-chip peripheral, input-output peripheral. And there is interrupt. Interrupt is also very required. So most of the real-world applications, if you want to efficiently develop this kind of application, you will need interrupt. Interrupt-driven applications are the most efficient applications. So all ports are built from output registers P0 to P3 and buffers. They're actually registers and buffers. So I'll show you some architecture of the ports also, how it is built. And port 0 and port 2 interface the external memory. If you want to have external memory, then definitely you are going to sacrifice 2 ports, that is port 0 and port 2. Because on port 0 there is address and data bus, which is multiplex. And on port 2 you are having higher order address byte, that is A8 to A15. Whereas A0 to A7, that is lower order address byte, is multiplex with the D0 to D7 on port 0. And that can be multiplex using the latch. There is a latch which holds the address, and allows the data and all that kind of thing. So there is a latch which handles this kind of jobs. And finally, P3 is P3 is another port which is important because there is a multiple functions, like there are peripherals like serial port, timer, counter. All those pins are available on port 3. Okay, and finally there is an on-chip oscillator which is available as well. This was all about the architecture of the 8051. Now we'll see a little bit about, okay, in memory organization, basically it is organized in two parts. There is a program memory which is 4 kilobytes, and there is a data memory which is 128 bytes. And this data memory, as I was telling you, that is divided into two, like general purpose registers and special function registers. Okay, general purpose registers are free to use, whereas special function registers are actually fixed. You can just program it, but you cannot alter its function. If it is meant for timer, counter, and PCON register, SCON register, etc., you cannot alter the function of those registers. Port 0, let's say, is actually having 80 hex address. You cannot alter that. So therefore, in data memory, you will find two kind of separations. There is a general purpose register. There are special purpose registers. And program memory, you have 4 kilobytes. Obviously, the address starts with 00 hex, and on chip it is 4 kilobytes, and externally you can have 64. And memory can also be divided into 4 separate address spaces. Program memory is the first memory address space, that is 64 kilo long. 4K, 8K or more can reside on chip. Okay, depending about the different versions. Basically, as I was telling, that 8051 you can have different versions. Intel's 8051 is having 4K, but then if you go to the other compatible versions from different manufacturers, you can have 4K, 16K, 32K. But they are at the core, they are MCS 51 standard only. But only there is advancement and addition of the memory. And then on reset, CPU begins execution from 0, that is origin. This is all about, because the programmer should know that what is the memory organization. Then only you can program it properly. Otherwise, if you write something and your program counter starts with the 00, and you're writing something which is not starting at 00, your every program should start from 00. Because PC is starting from 00. If you're starting something at some other address, it will not work. And otherwise also, if you put something on memory, programmer, it will automatically start the programming with the 00. Then each interrupt is assigned a fixed location in memory. Just again to test whether you are there or you are asleep, I mean whether you are there, or to make you alert, I just want to ask you, how many interrupt sources are there in 8051? 6 or 5? And what are these 6 or 5 interrupts sources in case of 8051?
If you include reset as an interrupt, then it is 6. If you exclude reset, then it is 1.
Okay, he says that if we include the reset, then it is 6. If we include, if we don't include, it is 5. If we include, it is 6. But that is not the case. Any other, I think, from the remote centers, how many interrupt sources are there? How many interrupt sources are there in case of 8051? MIT. Yes, MIT. Yes, sir. MIU Maulana or MIT or Dronacharya Group, or maybe from NIT Greater Noida. Okay, anyways, I will tell you. There are actually six interrupt sources, as he rightly said, one of the students sitting here. And the only thing is that, and these interrupt sources are actually interrupt 0, interrupt 1, timer 0, timer 1, and then you have got serial communication interface. So And in serial communication interface, basically transmit and receive RHD and TXD, both of them are considered as a separate interrupt sources. So these are 6 interrupt sources, totally independent. The only thing is that the vector locations of the serial communication interface is same, 0x23, I guess. So that is the same, shared by both RxD and TXD. Whereas interrupt 0, interrupt 1, they have different 0x03, 0x13, 0x1, 0x0b, 0x1b, and 0x23. These are actually 6. These are the 5 vector locations for the 6 interrupt sources that are available in the 8051. And whenever there is an interrupt, basically the program counter goes to that location, executes, and then comes back. So these are the hardwired interrupt sources, and anything that you develop using this kind of interrupts is bound to have very efficient response. So therefore, I wanted we were talking about the interrupts, and there are 6 interrupt sources. So each interrupt is, as I said, there are fixed locations in memory, and on interrupt what happens is there is service subroutine, interrupt subroutine you can say, which goes to that memory location. For example, in case of interrupt 0, it is 0x03, and interrupt 0, so interrupt service routine will go there, and it is always reserved. There is nothing written, even if you program in ROM something like that, but these locations are always reserved for this. So interrupt service locations are spaced at 8 bytes interval. You might notice that all this what I said was 0x03, 0x13, 0x0b, 1b, and 23. These are 8 byte intervals. So if you add 8 to the 3, then it becomes b. So that is the interrupt location for interrupt timer 0, like that. So they are 8 byte intervals. Then memory organization, microcontroller can execute instructions either from it or from external memory. So you will find that there is a EA pin, which I'll show in my diagram also. So if this EA pin is connected to the external, like ground, then actually it is using the external memory, and it is connected to the VCC, it is using the on-chip memory. So external data memory is the next second memory address space, and it can have 64 kilobytes of data memory, and memory is addressed indirectly through DPTR, R0 or R1. And there is internal data memory, has size of 256 bytes. It is divided into 2 blocks, 128 bytes for general purpose RAM, 0027FX, and another 128 bytes for 80X to FFX. This SFR area, special function registration area, and thus A, B, program status word, stack pointer, and DPTR plus all other control and status registers are viewed as an internal data memory. Okay, and therefore, in fact, any controller will have minimum at least 128 bytes of memory. And more on the internal data memory, that it has size of 256 bytes actually, but we call it 128 bytes because few are reserved, and SFRs are organized as an extension of the internal RAM, and 8051 integrates peripheral devices, thus need control and status registers, whatever peripheral like timers, counters. To control these timers, counters, serial communication interface, it needs registers like PCON, TCON, there are different registers, and to save these registers it needs a memory in the internal RAM. So they are stored in the SFR area. Logically, all microcontrollers, registers, general purpose, and embedded peripherals are placed in a common group. So lowest 32 bytes are grouped in 4 bands of 8 registers each, R0 to R7. I'll show you graphically also how they are organized. And then there are 2 bits in program status word which selects the bands. Okay. This is about the program status word and how it selects the bands. So you can observe that the bit 0 D0 is actually the parity flag, and this bit 1 is reserved, and 2 is actually overflow flag, and RS0 and RS1 actually register select. This RS0 and RS1 are used for register select. So you can select or switch the bank 0, bank 1, bank 2, bank 3. And F0 is a general purpose flag, and there is an auxiliary flag. Whenever there is a carry generated from D0 to D3 to D4, there is an auxiliary carry which gets generated, and whenever there is a carry beyond D7 bit, the carry flag gets generated. And depending upon the number of ones available in the operation, we call it parity. The parity flag gets generated. If ones are odd, then we have odd parity, and if ones are even, then we have even parity. Okay, this is something. Okay, so microcontroller can address bit as well as byte. Bit addressable. There is a bit addressable area beyond 20 hex, or in fact 3F. After here 3F, we'll see it in the RAM organization. Beyond that particular space, it is a bit addressable area, and many of the special function registers like PCON, TCON, etc., they are bit addressable. You can say that timer run 0 equal to 0, 1. So every individual bit is addressable. So that is called as bit addressability. Or you can have byte addressability. For example, on port 0, you are writing something, so you can directly write on all the 8 bits. So P0. So on all the 8 bits, so 1 byte can be directly written on the port 0 or port 1 or something like that. And or also you can these all bits, these ports are actually bit addressable. So these are bit and byte addressability of the controller. In data memory, from 20 to 2F hex, this 128 bit is actually bit addressable area, and from up to 1F hex, actually that is a bank area, 00 to 1F, and from 20 to 2F hex, that is a bit addressable area, scratchpad you can say. And bit addressable LSB, that is the same thing actually. Marked SFRs are also bit addressable, and we'll see it in the actually now diagram. That will be more clear from there. Well, these are the 4 address spaces, they say: program memory, internal and external. Okay, this picture, I don't know how clear it is, but what I can say, or you can see here, is actually there are 4 banks, and from 00 to 1F hex, there are 4 banks, and each bank is actually 8 byte wide. So in each bank there are 8 registers, R0 to R7, R0 to R7. So you can see on the blackboard also, I can draw it.
Hello. Hello, sir. This is from MIT Meerut. We
Yes,
are
yes.
unable to listen you.
Oh yes, we got it, and we are just connecting it.
Yes, sir. Now we can listen.
Yeah, right away we'll
Yes.
connect.
Now it's okay.
Yeah, it's connected, I guess. So there are 4 banks, and each bank is actually 8 byte wide, and each bank consists of 8 registers, R0 to R7, and each. So there are basically 4 banks, and 4 banks, they are 32 byte wide. So 00 to 1F is actually the bank area, and R0 to R7, these are the 8 registers used, and the selection of the bank depends upon the program status word, those bits that we use, and these are programmable. And 2.0 to 2F, that is the bit addressable area that we can use. And from 80 to 8F, now you can see that 32 plus this 20 to 2F, this plus 15, and so remaining area from 2F to 2F to 80, and then 8.0 to F0, that is the area which is actually used for the special function registers. And you can see there are different special function registers here. There is a port 0, there is a stack pointer, DPL, DPH, PCON, that is power control register, TCON, timer control register, TMOD, timer mode register, and then we have SCON, serial control register, SBuffer, and port 2, and they have different addresses, as you can see. Interrupt enable. There are different registers which are stored inside this RAM area, which is 128 bytes long. And this figure is actually not very clear, but whether bit addressable or byte addressable, everything is there. And some of the registers are actually bit addressable, like SCON. SCON is a serial control register, which is a bit addressable register. So whatever star marked are there, these are actually bit addressable. All ports are bit addressable for that matter. And TCON, SCON, interrupt enable, program status word, accumulator, B register, these are all bit addressable registers. And you can see this pin diagram here now, that what we have learned about the architecture of the 8051. The same thing it shows. There is a port 0. There is a port 0 on right side, which is bidirectional. There is a port 1 on the left side, okay, and there is a port 3. There is a port 2 again coming to the right side, which is 8-bit. So port 0, 1, port 2, and port 3. These are the 4 ports which are 8 bits wide, and these all 4 ports are bidirectional, and that gives you actually 32 I/O lines, programmable I/O lines. You can program them as an input or output. And you can see that this port 0 is actually multiplexed, having address and data lines multiplexed to it. So D0 to D7, because you can actually write or read, so actually the direction is given on the both sides. So this is connect, and this has something to do with the read and write operations, because these are the read and write operations when you are having external memory interfacing. So there is a lot of connection here. So we'll just try to understand what is this port 0 and port 2 first, because this port 0 and port 2 are used for external memory interfacing. Let's say the internal memory is not sufficient enough to meet your requirements, then this port 0 and port 2 is something that you will have to sacrifice with. So these 2 ports are getting sacrificed, because you will connect these 8 pins of the port 0, which will give data lines D0 to D7 to the RAM or ROM either, or both. And lower order address byte A0 to A7 is again coming from the same port, that is port 0. So that is going to the again RAM or ROM. And you see that this EA bar, when you this EA bar external access, when you connect this to the ground, so that the signal is coming inside, you can say that the signal is going inside, this logic goes inside, the EA pin goes to the ground, then this is actually the external interfacing. The memory is accessed from the outside, so external access it meaning, and if it is internal memory, then it is connected to the VCC plus 5 volt, so meaning that the on-chip code is executed. So let us understand firstly this external memory access, wherein the EA pin gets, that is pin number 31, is connected to ground, and address latch enable is actually connected to the ROM, and that address is enabled of the ROM, and therefore the codes are being fetched. on the program store enable pin is again connected to the ROM. So this ALE, PSEN, the signals are going out because ALE will give the enable pulse, address latch enable pulse to the ROM, and program store enable will actually give again the pulse for fetching the codes from the memory, ROM memory. So it will enable the program, and on this ALE pulse, actually the code gets fetched from the memory. So therefore, these are giving actually the external signal. So data, whether now in case of ROM, it is going to be the data here, this instructions here based. So and this port 2 will supply the higher order address byte to the memory with the read or write operation. So A8 to A15, it is going to this port 2. So now, and this D0 to D7, because this write and read operation will happen in case of RAM, because you can read and write both in case of RAM. So it is actually going to this D0 to D7. So WR bar and RD bar, these are the two things which are connected to the RAM, whereas ALE, PSEN, this is connected to the ROM. And on pin number 18 and 19, so basically besides now ports, port 0, port 2, port 1 and port 2 and port 3, besides these 4 ports, what your controller needs is actually the power. In its basic form, in its basic configuration, it will need VCC, that is connected on port pin number 40, and on pin number 20 there is a ground. So in its basic configuration, it will essentially need the power that is on port pin number 40 and pin number 20, and it will also essentially need the this oscillation, that means crystal. So on pin number 18 and 19, there will be an oscillator connected in its basic requirement, the most basic configuration. So as soon as you give the power, you give the crystal and reset circuit. So at pin number 9, that is RST, you will connect the reset circuit either on chip or there is a RC circuit also available for giving the reset pulse. There is a difference between the reset pulse of the microcontroller and microprocessor. In case of microcontroller, the reset pulse is active high. In case of microprocessor, it is active low. So as soon as you now give the power and the oscillator circuit on pin number 18, 19 and the reset circuit, the controller is ready to work. It is now ready in its most basic configuration, and now you can do all your interfacing or any other things. So it is ready to interact with the external world. So that is the basic configuration. And so we have seen that port 0 and port 2 are actually play role, take part in as far as the external memory access is concerned, and in that case we are actually sacrificing these 2 ports at the cost of gaining more memory. And in those cases of external memory access, this EA pin, ALE pin, PSEN pin, which are available on pin number 29, 30 and 31, and this 16, 17 stop signals, WR bar and RD bar, play the role. So these are the pins which are useful for actually interfacing the external memory. So you can see all these pins are getting engaged when you do the external access of the memory. Now what you are left out with is actually the port 1 and port 3. So port 1 is completely as such, it is available to you. It is not a dual purpose and it can be completely used. Whereas again port 3 is a multi-purpose. It can be used as an input I/O bits, bidirectional I/O bits, as well as if you need some kind of on-chip peripherals interfacing or its application like serial communication interface, so RxD, TxD, because you are receiving, so this arrow will come inside, and if you are transmitting, the arrow will go outside, so signal is going out. So the serial port, you will use these pins, pin number 10 and 11 of the controller. In case if you are using the interrupts, so there are interrupts, interrupt 0 and interrupt 1. These are the external interrupts. Mind it that you can also use the interrupts using the timers or counters which are available on pin number this T0 and T1, that is for pin number 14 and 15 of the controller. These are T0, T1 can be internally generated also. These are the interrupts which can be generated internally. So transmit receiving can also lead to the interrupts. Whereas if you want to have dedicated interrupts and the external interrupts driven from something like sensors, something is coming, so you can connect them to pin number 12 and 13, interrupt 0 and interrupt 1. So these are the dedicated interrupts. And whereas for any timer, counter, overflow flag gets generated, and that overflow flag generation can be used as a timer, as an interrupt. And similarly is the case with the receiving and transmission. On the when the transmission happens completely, or the particular flag gets generated, the buffer, there is a particular flag for transmission, there is a particular flag for reception. So as buffer is the register used, and then they combinedly can be used for initiating the interrupts. So port 3 is again a dual purpose kind of port, which is can be used for both the purposes, like IO bits, in general purpose IO bits, or the special function registers, or the special IO peripherals. So this is what this pin diagram and the complete 8051 looks like. It is a 40 pin chip. You can see, note here, there are 1 to 20 on one side, and there are 21 to 40 on other side. So this is a 40 pin chip, and 4 ports, they actually use the 32 IO bits, and then remaining are the 8 pins. Out of them, 2 pins are meant for power, and then 2 pins are meant for crystal. So now remaining 4 pins, these are actually meant for there is one reset, and then there are 3 pins left which are used for the external memory access, that is EA, ALE and PSEN. So that is the whole organization of the pin count and its particular application. So the same is written here, how it is used. This is a port 3, which is a dual purpose. Reset is active high. This is said here. Okay, solve we have already covered. This is the timing diagram, how the memory reads. This is a 12 pulses machine cycle frequency oscillators. So there are 6 states in each machine cycle. In each 6 states there are actually 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. And this on this ALE pin and PSEN pin, particular instruction and the data gets fetched. This is how the whole memory execution happens.